Good evening. This is the Wednesday, November 15th, 2017 meeting of the Finance Committee. 7 o'clock, we're starting on time. Our agenda tonight, this is the fiscal 19 budget kickoff meeting. Department heads are here and division heads are here, so thanks everyone for coming and spending a little bit of time with us tonight. After Ed makes a presentation on that, we're going to vote on, we've got I think 3 or 4 transfers tonight. We will reorganize as a committee, which we're a little tardy in doing. After that, we'll designate 2 Finance Committee members for the SPEDS Stabilization Joint Policy Group. We have a couple of minutes to talk about, and then we'll adjourn. So a fairly quick and hopefully brief agenda tonight. Ed?
Thank you. Just a few comments before I start the presentation. I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight on this cold fall night. There is a sign-up sheet here, so if everyone could sign in, and then there's a handout here as well. Mr. Chairman, probably about a 15-minute presentation, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Sure, that's fine. Thanks, Ed. And Julie, thanks for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So good evening all. Tonight is the night we kick off the FY19 budget. Now the computer doesn't want to cooperate. Michael?
We're going to the bullpen right away.
So much for the over-under. Nope. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you, Mike. So the presentation tonight, the FY19 budget, which is for a period beginning July 1 of 2018 through June 30th of 19, represents a bottom line estimate right now of $87,000 in change. This presentation includes full utilization of Prop 2.5 as we show it every year. So if we're trying to live within the 1.25% levy limit that we have been averaging over the past 7 to 8 years, we would have to remove about $450,000 out of the budget to bring it back down to 1.25. Now, certainly as I go along, we were conservative in our state receipts. Hopefully, if we see a net gain in that, then that will help us to get close to the 1.25. So this budget before you tonight has a request or recommendation or projection, I should say, of $65,382,000 in change, with total revenue sources equaling $65,470,052. Right now, there's a projected surplus of $87,397. On the local receipt side, we level funded based upon our submittal for the FY18 recap will be going in a couple of weeks since the tax classification hearing took place last night. Cherry sheet revenue, as of right now, we're level funding. Tax levy is up about $1.55 million, and I'll get into some of those details as we get along. You can see all the debt exclusion amounts that we're raising outside of the levy limit for the Auburn High School and Auburn Middle School. And total available funds is down $568,000. Total revenue is up 1.90%. It's about a $1.2 million increase over current fiscal year. And appropriations are up about the same, 1.269 or 1.98%. Now, breaking down the revenue, the tax levy we plan on raising, if we utilize the entire amount of $39,950,984. These projections commit 2.25% of 2.5 towards the operational side of the budget. It also commits 1/10 of 2.5 or 0.25% towards our capital improvement plan per the financial policy. We're estimating $475,000 in new growth in these projections. And excess levy would remain the same if we utilize the entire 2.5% of $4,576,966. That would equal a levy utilization of 89.49%. The unused levy, which is $4.5 million, is 10.51%. It raises a little over $3 million outside the levy limit for the debt exclusion votes passed by the voters. And there's a debt exclusion offset. These are premiums received at the time we go out for bonds that we have to set aside and apply towards the debt and interest of almost $78,000. Here's our new growth history, which has been recently updated based upon the FY18 new growth. The 5-year average is 691,973. We're using $450,000 in our projections for 19. Here's a breakdown of the levy. Our levy base is $43,089,000. That would be the levy limit 18, and it would be our starting base for 19. We get to compute 2.5% on top of that. That's roughly $1,077,000 and change. Our projected new growth is $475,000. We'd be taxing $39,950,984 out of a total levy limit of $44,642,085. The difference is the excess levy of $4.6 million. Cherry sheet revenue, right now we're level funding it. Certainly we've seen some ups and downs in state aid. I'm happy to report for the first quarter of FY18, the state has recognized about $124 million, or a 2% increase over their projections. So that's good, and we're hoping that trend continues because that only translates, hopefully, to additional local aid to Massachusetts municipalities. On the available fund side, this budget does not include $100,000 in overlay surplus like it does in 18 to address some facility improvements. This budget has a reduction of $82,000 from the current year budget. We had a one-time foreclosure sale that yielded about a little over $100,000 of revenue. We used $82,000 of that for one-time expenditures. There's a reduction in current year ambulance proceeds to FY19 of $105,000. That was used as a one-time capital and operational offset. And there's a reduction in MSBA band interest that we used as a revenue source in 18 that's no longer available. Total available funds of $1,237,226. And here's a listing of the available funds. That's part of your packet. I highlighted the ones that there were some major fluctuations in. On the local receipt side, as I stated earlier, we are right now level funding our projections based upon FY18 recaps, and I say that because we adjusted the 18 recap based upon FY17 actuals. So we'll have a better handle on this in the spring, and as we're approaching the end of the fiscal year, we always adjust these numbers after the close of the fiscal year at the fall town meeting. And here's a list of the local receipts, and as you can see, it's level funded from FY18. So if we look at our total revenue projected, it's $65,470,051.87. That's an increase of 1.90% over current fiscal year. It's an increase of $1,221,606.88. Now on the expense side, these projections include a 2% index on all wage-related line items right across the board. And out of the 609,000, that would chew up about 50, almost 57% of what's available under 2.5. That's a big chunk of change, and we have other fixed costs that we have to consider as well. The payroll for FY19 will be calculated using 52.0 weeks. As I said, the 609,000 represents a 2% factor for all wages. This budget meets our solid waste pickup. It's a contractual increase of 3.25%. There is a fuel adjustment in that contract that is not part of this increase. Hopefully, if fuel prices remain pretty constant, then we won't have to be dealing with an escalator in the contract. It increases employee benefits by 8.82%. It increases group health by 8.5%. And it increases our retirement assessment by 12% based upon a trend over the last 2 fiscal years. That actual assessment won't be known until approximately January of 2018. It increases our tax levy funding under the financial policy by $107,724. The FY19 tax levy utilized in our CIP plan will be approaching $1 million. It will be $990,000. It maintains our OPEB funding at $500,000 per year. This projection meets all of our debt and interest obligation, and it accounts for a short-term borrowing for our capital for FY19. It level funds our roadway reconstruction program. It level funds snow and ice at current FY18 levels, which was increased from 17. And it level funds Medicaid receipts, which was amended at the fall town meeting at $185,000. Continuing with the general fund expense, it level funds cherry sheet assessments, charges, and offsets. This budget, once again, includes our adopted financial policies. This would be year 6 of adherence of those policies. There's no earmark for stabilization in this budget as of yet. That's a consideration that we bring in typically at the fall town meeting. The budget does provide for a 2% increase for Bay Path. Certainly, the increase has been less than 2 over the last several years, but we thought it would be best to plug a factor of 2 at this point in time. It maintains our Norfolk Aggie School assessment at current levels of $32,149. I believe this would be year 3 of an outside placement. We would have FY19 as well as FY20. And it maintains funding for Mary D. and Julia Bancroft to maintain those facilities until the deeds are transferred. We don't expect that to happen during FY19. Here's a list of the departments and the projections that were identified in the previous slides. I'm not going to go through those. If you look at page 17, our total appropriations are $65,382,654.17. So to recap our expense, once again, $65,382,654.17, up 1.98% over current fiscal year 18. That's an increase of $1,269,474.33. Right now, under these projections, if we utilize all of Prop 2.5, that would leave $87,397.70. Looking at the budget priorities identified by the town department heads, we had a meeting in late summer to try to identify the need so we could begin to think about how we may address these. So I'll run through these very quickly. The police department brought on a position and a half in FY18 with the expectation that another position would be considered in the following year, FY19. So that is a priority. We have a long-term strategy to increase firefighter complement to 9 per shift. We have increased, we'd like to increase funding for our roadway reconstruction program that would address some needs such as the repaving of municipal lots, which are really not part of the roadway program. We're looking to build that into the capital program as well. We would like, if possible, to maintain a utilization of the tax levy at about 1.25 if possible. We will continue any way we can to offer tax relief programs and exemptions to assist our seniors in our community. We want to continue to increase our town reserve accounts, and we would like to continue to rehab and upkeep our town facilities. We also, through some discussions with the DPW director, we would like to hopefully add another full-time person to be shared between fleet maintenance and the highway department. And we would like to identify funding in the future to repair or replace our aging roadway guardrails. On the school committee, their priorities. Student safety, student achievement, class size, technology, textbooks, professional development, strategic plan implementation, and educator evaluation. So these came to me today from school administration. I explained to them that we wanted to let these priorities be known up front as part of your consideration when their budget comes before you. So, Mr. Chairman, department heads and anyone who is viewing this presentation, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions at this point in time.
Great, thank you, Eddie. And as once again we acknowledge the department heads here, I also want to acknowledge the Board of Selectmen Chair and Vice Chair here. Also appreciate your interest in starting the budget off correctly with a lot of communication involved. I know the budget, I think, was already passed through you guys on Monday. I don't know, I was very excited about going through the classification. That was just riveting stuff, so thank you. Open it up to questions and any comments from any of the department heads or questions for Eddie. Ed, I believe you've gone through these budgets or started to with the department heads, capital at least, or?
The preparation of the budgets will commence now.
Okay.
The budgets are due in the first week of January. There is a timeline in your packet. And then we would start at least our review of the budgets shortly after that.
Yep.
And the budgets would come to you end of February.
And that's including the capital plan too?
Capital plan, we've already met with the department heads.
Okay.
We want to do a second go-around with some departments. We have to get a little creative in terms of financing some larger items. So we've had some discussions. They have gone back to refine, retool. So we're expecting to meet again, I believe, probably not next week, the week after. So we will hope to finalize that by the end of November.
Oh, good. Okay. So we may have an opportunity to address the capital plan on the front end of the budget this year?
Yes.
Good. That's good. Any questions from the committee? Valerie?
For the group health increase, is that negotiated already, the 8.5%?
So the plan design is negotiated. I estimated that increase based upon historical data. So Certainly, we know that's one of the moving targets. We know that prescription drugs are really driving premiums up. Every reason to believe that's going to continue in the next year. We won't get our rate increase probably until March. So that could be a budget buster, or, I mean, that's a big line item.
What is the 8.5?
No, the increase, that work is already done. Negotiations are already done.
Okay.
That's in place. The only thing is the renewal and what that will do for our
Open
rate.
enrollment. Okay. Approximately, what is that 8.5% in dollars?
In dollars? It's about $700,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments at this point in time? Yeah?
Hi, I have a couple questions. The first on page 15, under expenses. Could you tell me what the school cable access expense is?
I'm sorry, can you repeat
On
that?
page 15, school cable access, down the bottom, line 303.
Oh. So, okay, that's shifted. The school is Norfolk Agricultural.
Oh, okay.
All right?
Yeah.
And the cable access is the enterprise fund for, that was just approved by town meeting. That now has to be appropriated annually.
Okay. And my other question was on new growth. You're utilizing you're projecting 475,000, but the average has been has been 610,000. So it seems like you're underestimating that.
Well, we adjust that. But part of our financial policy is we are conservative with that, and anything above and beyond that, we apply as a way to continue to compress the tax classification factor.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Julie, any comments on this?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, that's fine. So if we're concluded on this, there's a lot of hardworking people out there that I'd like to send home if possible, except for Jeff and Bill, the usual suspects. So department heads, division heads, thanks for coming. Doreen and King, thanks for coming. If you want to stay, that's great too. We just have a couple of transfers and otherwise should be moving along quickly with the meeting. Why don't we take a 2-minute break, let folks clear out. Okay, let's reopen the meeting here. The next item on the agenda is we have a few transfers. Our first transfer this evening, this is actually within the DPW sewer division. This is, we're transferring $100,000 from retained earnings to the Upland Street sewer main break, which happened on or about October 31st, November 1st. It was the 30th? Okay, thanks, Jeff. And I've actually, this is for an emergency sewer line repair, which I believe is ongoing. Jeff Mitchell's here to explain a little bit about where we are, where we're going with this, and I think Eddie will probably have a comment or two. I'm not sure this $100,000 is going to be covering the whole situation, but I think now's a good time for an update on where we stand on this and where our next funding source is after using retained earnings. Jeff, can you explain just briefly what happened in our response? Thank you.
Shocking experience. Yeah, it was on the 30th of October, approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We got a report of wastewater showing on the edge of the road. And through further inspections, we found out that it's an 18-inch concrete pipe that has collapsed. We had RH White come in. We've used them in the past for emergency repairs and whatnot. They have the equipment and the crew that usually can mobilize pretty fast. So they were there first thing Tuesday morning, which was Halloween, and worked diligently all day long. It was a long day, and at approximately 10 o'clock that night, we had made the repair, or so we thought, and opened everything up, turned everything back on, only to find that we had another break about 15 feet downstream from the one we just fixed. So, needless to say, that was an indication at that time, unsubstantiated indication that the pipe was, completely junk. So we stopped work. We had septic haulers. We had to completely shut down the Sword Street pump station, which flows about anywhere from 400 to 700,000 gallons of wastewater a day. We had septic haulers taking the place of the pumps so that we wouldn't have the surge going down the line towards the break. So they ran, it ended up to be that the septic haulers ran about 36 hours straight. So we had people working around the clock. They were, transferring off drivers of the trucks and whatnot, which was a very expensive undertaking. It was costing about $2,200 an hour for all the trucks to be running. So what we ended up doing was we had RH White come back. We were going to attempt another repair, the second repair. But in the meantime, we ran our camera into the pipe and found that the pipe is absolutely junk. We found holes, and the concrete was actually deteriorated to the point where the rebar inside was actually showing. So, and normally that type of pipe is about 3.5 to 4 inches thick, and the top of this pipe here was about half an inch. So every time you touched it or drove over it or got near it, it was just caving in, and that's what happened. So we have a bypass system running right now that's been running since last Wednesday, I believe. And so that's, environmentally puts us in an okay spot. I mean, at least nothing is spilling. It's not perfect by any means. That area is open to vandalism because of the area. And being mechanical, anything can go wrong at any time, as well, anything. So we're in the process right now we have 3 quotes to replace that section. It's about 260 feet of pipe, 18-inch pipe. And we have quotes anywhere from, I think, 140 to 180,000 to replace it. That's what the original quote was, until we found out yesterday afternoon that there's a high-pressure gas line that goes over that sewer pipe. So I don't know what that's going to, what type of effect that's going to have on the quotes that we've received already. In the process of trying to find out exactly what they're going to require as far as that type of work. So that's basically where we're at right now. The transfer, we had 43,000, about that in change, in sewer line repair. We've used that up on some of the septic haulers. This transfer tonight will allow us to pay the remainder of the septic haulers, and then we have to get into the emergency repair. We haven't been invoiced for that as of yet from RH White, so that'll be, part of that will be paid through that as well.
Okay. So we're clearing out what we have for retained earnings, which is obviously the first step.
Within the budget, yes.
Budget, yeah. Next steps on that, Ed, in terms of strategy?
Well, there are, as I know it, there are 2 eligible expenses that qualify for deficit spending. One is snow and ice, and the other one is any public health hazard. This is a public health hazard. So it does qualify to deficit spend. I believe it requires an authorization from the town manager we're formally required to vote by the Board of Selectmen. I believe that language has been amended and allows the town manager to authorize that. That being said, we'd have to deficit spend. That deficit would close out at year end. And I'd have to have some discussions with DOR, but either it closes out against the retained earnings account or the equivalent of their fund balance, or we would be required to raise it on the recap sheet, where the users would pay to raise that amount of money. So those discussions will take place probably this week. But up until today, we still don't have a handle on what that total cost is gonna be. I think we now know it's gonna exceed the 100 that's in his operating budget. So that being said, I think we can now place a call to DOR and determine what we need to do.
Do we have an ability to, well, this is our second collapse in, what's it been, 5 years since the Christmas time?
About that,
About 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know, Ed, you had said this pipe's just under 50 years old, 45 years old, somewhere around there. Do we have any ability to go
We're
back to the system?
addressing that in the capital this year. We're putting an additional 100,000 in the capital each year to hopefully address, we're going to address what we believe the major, areas or the areas of concern are first, and then, work our way out.
With this camera system, do we have an ability to shut off certain areas, go in and double check to see where we're more at risk versus less at risk?
It's a lot simpler to do that in the gravity side of the system because we have manholes, so we can go from manhole to manhole. But the force main system, which I'm not as concerned with, but we've had issues with that as well.
Yeah.
The force main, there is no entry points for the camera to go in, so we would have to make entry points, and those would be about anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000 a piece for each entry point, and you can only go like 500 feet at a time, so that would get very expensive, whereas the gravity system isn't as expensive because it's just a matter of, going from manhole to manhole, which is anywhere from 300 to 350 feet.
Okay.
Kevin, if I can just add, I want to
Sure.
thank Jeff and his department and Bill for everything they did. That was, as you can hear, it's still going on. It's been a couple of weeks. It's been nonstop. In addition to that, and Jeff, kindly didn't mention it, but there's all the red tape per se under Chapter 30B requirements too. So we had to have a special meeting when we realized the cost was exceeding $50,000, which meant we needed to get an emergency waiver for the state from procurement purposes, or we would have had to go out to bid for all of these services, and we would have had more of a potential public health threat. So we did, Jeff put together everything he needed. We had a call with the state, several calls with the state. Jeff was able to get a letter off to them Thursday, and Friday, even though the state was closed, they turned it around and got back to us with an approval. So we are just, as Jeff did mention, the 3 quotes that we're getting, it's 3 written quotes as opposed to an entire bid process, which is allowed under 30B. So there's been a lot of pieces to this, and I just want to thank them because they've really done a great job, put a lot of work into it,
Okay.
and continuing to.
Yeah, absolutely, and I know that's right below my house, so I've seen quite a bit of that anyways, and I think especially have done a pretty darn good job of managing traffic. Upland Street down there is both a little tricky and also a very, very busy road, so kudos to the police department also, so I know Lieutenant Harrington's here.
If I could just
Eddie, please.
add a comment or two.
Yeah.
I think certainly I know Bill and I and Jeff and Julie have had discussions and recognize the fact that it's an aging system and we need to do something about it. So 4 or 5 years ago, we had a discussion about building into the operational side of the budget a $100,000 line item called retained earnings that would, in essence, build that up. Is a way to address that. So I know our recent certification of retained earnings in the SOAR Enterprise Fund was approaching 1.4 million. wasn't too long ago, it was only $400,000. So we made some major strides in trying to build that up is a way to address our infrastructure. But when you're talking about an infrastructure townwide, I think it has a value of $65 million-ish. It's a drop in the bucket. So we're struggling with that, you know, we're doing our best to try to keep up with that. Certainly, I know there have been some major repairs, especially to the pump stations over the years that we funded through bond proceeds. And I know Jeff is he continues to examine those pipes to determine whether or not there's a potential for failure, that we can be proactive instead of reacting to these breaks. So it's something that is ongoing and something that we're trying to address on a annual basis. So
Okay. Do you see, looking forward, once we get into this bidding and other transfers as they may be necessary, any timing issues? I don't expect we're going to meet in December, maybe not till even late January, in terms of whether there be a funding need. I just want to be upfront with my committee if we need a verbal transfer on short notice to take care of a vendor.
I think it all depends. I think we have the authorization to deficit spend. That being the case, we will not need a transfer. Now, at the end of the year, if we can sweep some accounts and apply it towards that deficit, that would be the time that we would be bringing those forward.
Okay. Now, within the sewer enterprise fund, we can eventually pass this on as an increase to the sewer rate that's being charged,
If need be.
if
yes.
need be on this. Okay. Which would be, I'm sure, part of a larger financing strategy for this. Okay. So this is a down payment really on what would hopefully be the eventual fix on this. Can I assume because of that kind of construction work, that is not, the weather can get tricky this time of year? Is that going to be an issue?
I think we're early enough in the season. We don't have to worry so much about the frost, you know, and that the only thing would have to make it difficult to be rain, you know, if we had a lot of rain or whatnot. But I don't foresee any extreme cold where we're going to have frost problems, so we should be able to squeak this out before the dead of winter shows up.
My last question, will most of the work going forward be away from the actual street?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Once again,
There'll
it's
be
just
minimal,
tough
there
load.
should be minimal interruption in traffic.
Good. Okay, great. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. I'll open it up to any more questions. I've been hogging the microphone. Kim?
Just quick, do you have a time frame of when you expect the repair to be complete?
I wish I could give you an exact time. Right now, I'm waiting to hear back from the pipeline keepers, if you will, the high-pressure gas line, because they have certain requirements as far as working around or over their pipeline. So they basically told me that I couldn't even go in the area. And I says, well, that's unacceptable. I have to fix the sewer line. So they gave me some verbal chit-chat back and forth. So I says, well, I need some things in writing and some detail on what your requirements will be so that I can pass it on to the contractors so they can give us pricing. So unfortunately, until I hear back from that, the contractors are ready to go tomorrow, you know, but it's just a matter of getting the right pieces together and in place and whatnot.
Thank you.
Definitely, you say separate from the gas, the issue would be about within 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah. The project will take, should take less than 2 weeks, we're hoping.
Okay, good. Thanks, Bill. Any other questions on this? Okay, do we have a motion on this? This is to transfer $100,000 for this specific Upland Street sewer main break.
Motion to recommend?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate that. And more to follow. All right. Our next transfer, this is under the DPW. This is from the wages account. Amount requested $4,200 for cemetery improvement. This is for a walkway improvement, some marking pins and planks. And we've got DPW Director Bill Coyle here. I'm just going to open up to any questions, Bill. I know we had a brief conversation on some of the parts there, and I also know that there is some availability in the wage account for this transfer because of some recent retirements and just some availability there.
Give a brief explanation.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Finance Committee. This transfer is 3 items that we're looking to purchase. One is for aluminum planks, essentially, basically for safety reasons, to have planks covering the graves as they're excavated and left open. It's in the past, I think they've had sheets of plywood, which really doesn't meet. Technically, it falls under a trench requirement on deeper than 3 feet. Really should have steel plates. However, because of the nature of the work in the gravestones, we don't want to be moving steel plates around with granite markers, monuments. So the planks, we would purchase 4 of them for $856. Marking pins would be $1,274, I believe, was the amount, and that's basically to mark out the location of the plots. And then walkway improvement is for the entrance into the to the office currently. Previously, we didn't have office hours. Now we do with some of the reorganization and the changes. And the existing walkway is basically more or less grass, which really isn't acceptable. We really need to have an entrance that allows for a handicap access into the front, at least to the front door.
Okay. And I'll open that up to any questions.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. And our last transfer, I actually gave a verbal okay on this, and this was back in August when we had a significant issue with some of the police vehicles. Lieutenant Harrington, thanks for staying here tonight. This was a transfer of $3,887, and I think it was relating to the cruisers. Was that it, or a different transfer?
Is that specific for the CO detector?
Yes. Yeah. Are those all set now?
Yes.
Great, that's fine. Eddie, any reimbursement from Ford, or how did that end up? I mean, was there,
I think that is still currently before the insurance company, so a final determination has not been made. I think there may be an effort for them to subrogate, but
yeah, okay. The only other question I had is I know we had all of our Explorers checked, and I know there's a few more than just the police department. Were there any issues with the non-police Explorers that we had, and those were all addressed?
There were 3 additional vehicles beyond the police vehicles that were Ford Explorers.
And
They were all addressed at the same time.
okay, that's great. Once again, I gave a verbal approval on this. I would just kind of like that validated. So this was a request for $3,887 from the reserve account for equipment for the Ford Explorers with the CO problems.
Motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Great. So that's all we have transfers. So we're all set with that. Our next agenda item is committee reorganization. I've been told for multiple years now we should be doing this very early in the start of the new fiscal year, and I'm probably the slowest committee to get this done for my own reasons. So I believe, and I never get this right, I'm turning this over to Sharon to run the campaign.
Are there any nominations for chairman?
I make a motion, Kevin Hussey.
Is there a second?
Second.
I move to close nominations.
Second.
Second.
All in favor of closing?
Aye.
All in favor of Mr. Hussey for chairman?
Aye.
I guess anyways. At this point, open nominations for vice chair.
I make a motion for Ian Kavanaugh.
Second.
I make a motion to close nominations.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the vote for Ian, I guess. Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
aye.
All in favor? I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Never get good at that. All right, our next item, we've been asked to have 2 volunteers from the Finance Committee to serve on the SPED Stabilization Joint Policy Group. Kevin Kennedy, who couldn't make it here tonight, and Kim Holstrom have volunteered for this assignment, which, as was noted in the meeting the other night, 3 to 5 meetings max, and then I think it's got to go before at least the Board of Selectmen and the school committee. Do they need to come before us with the,
I think they'd be looking to adopt this policy from the working group by Board of Selectmen, School Committee, and Finance.
And the
We would like
Finance
to make this part of the financial policy.
okay, that's fine. So Kim, thank you for volunteering for that, and Kevin, who's not here. So we're all set on that committee. We've got minutes from March 15, 2017, March 29, 2017, and May 2nd, 2017. Any corrections or comments to those? All right, we're running out of things to talk about, which is great. Ed, once again, I don't think we have a reason to meet in December unless there's something significant, especially
All
with...
depends what you would like to do with the capital. I mean,
When's it going to be
we can
available?
do that. I mean, you won't start your budget deliberations until the end of February, maybe beginning of March. So if it's something you want to do in February or when,
About January.
January,
Especially the capital. I'd like to take a really good look at that.
or if you want us to submit it to you, and then you'll have it and make it part of, when you call the department heads in, not only will you address the operational side of the budget, but the capital as well.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, so not a reason to meet in December then, correct? Good, okay. Well, that's great. I guess before Thanksgiving, I'll say happy Thanksgiving and Christmas to everybody, and happy holidays. And I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you. Good night.